Yo, 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 everybody, what's going on? Welcome to episode 70 of Climbing the Ladder. I'm your host, ChanmanV, and today, got a special episode. Going to be talking about eSports and kind of the family dynamics actually everybody here on the show has, and how prominent it is in our family dynamics and in our dens and that sort of thing. We'll also be talking about how viable eSports is for our kids. Like, do we actually think pro gaming is a viable or something that we should maybe start training them for and that sort of thing. We'll also be talking about online gaming, how is it good for kids, and violence in games, and how it potentially affects kids and all that business. At the end, we'll be having some viewer Q&A like usual. You can call in your questions by adding me on Skype. My Skype ID is ChanmanV, and I'll pull you into the call at the end. Or you can post your questions in Stream Chat or on the Reddit thread, which I will post in just a second. But at this time, I'm going to introduce my co-host and our esteemed guest today. Joining me each and every week is John Clark of eSports Solution. What's up, John?
Hey, sorry, shit. I'm doing great. Sorry, I'm trying to get Twitch working.
That's all right.
I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for having me back.
All right. Also co-hosting with me each and every week is Mr. Richard Lewis, who's editor-in-chief of Cadrid and the host of eSports Heavens and the new show Trash Talk. What's up, Richard?
Yeah. Going well. We just had a trash talk last night, which was lots of fun. I got like 26 downvotes on my YouTube VOD because I said,
nice.
fuck timestamps. Fuck timestamps. So, yeah, I'm a little bit bitter and pissed off, but it's a serious topic, so hopefully
Fuck timestamps. You're just lazy. That's all it is, man.
Fuck it. Watch the whole show. It's 2 hours. Stop pretending you got better things to do.
Oh, God. But last but not least, our esteemed guest. He's somebody everybody knows, and we've waited a long time to get this show or this episode.
We worked
down.
to make this happen, didn't we?
I know, it's probably pretty close to a year and a half. And I have this book that I always write any episode inspirations and stuff. And I wrote down this particular episode probably a year ago, and I wrote Wheat. And I wasn't going to do this episode until you came on, so I'm really, really happy. We got none other than Mr. Marcus Graham, a.k.a. djWHEAT, host, caster, content producer, one of the hardest working guys in eSports. We all know. Well, welcome, Marcus.
Thanks, you guys. I'm excited to be on the show, and especially today's topic. I think it's cool, and I address it every once in a while, when I'm just streaming personally, so it's good to kind of to have someone else and not just talking one way to Chad and then, have a discussion about it. So thanks for having me on for it.
Awesome. Yeah, so I've labeled this episode Raising Generation Esports. And wanted to just jump right in with the topic of how, I guess, esports has been integrated into our families. Because, we work in esports, or, you guys work full-time in esports. And we're probably the best case scenario for esports, and having it really be in our dens and us watching it on TV, and just hooking up to our TVs and actually watching all the streams. So I want to get a sense of how it's been integrated into your family right now. Marcus, why don't you start?
So there's a lot of it's where do I start? Because the first thing the one thing I want to get out there that just amazes me all the time is that my son really isn't going to ever remember there not being a Twitch, there not being a YouTube, there not being this thing called competitive gaming, which is weird. And he's lived and grown up with it and around it, and that doesn't necessarily mean that he's gotten super involved with it, but he's just sort of, it's everywhere, it's everywhere he turns. So with that being said, the amount of usage, my son doesn't watch much television at all. He used to watch a lot of, maybe the PBS and appropriate kid stuff growing up, which I do think is pretty good and healthy to have a little bit of. But he now he watches a lot of Twitch. He watches a lot of YouTube videos. He, watches a lot of streaming video as well. But when you put that all together, it's just the way I think kids are a little bit connected. So right now, esports is certainly, and sort of online video and all that stuff is sort of, it's highly integrated into the family. His interests though are his interests. So It's not like he'll sit down with me if I'm like watching a StarCraft 2 match, with attention, but he won't necessarily be like, yo, Pops, what tournaments are on right now? Like he's not there yet. He's only 7, right? So he wants to watch Minecraft streamers and stuff like that.
So are you still watching in front of your computer for the most part, or is it more of a den living room type of thing?
No, we are let's just say we're connected. I watch on all my mobile devices.
Yeah.
He has his own iPad. We have Apple TVs everywhere. So,
Yep.
Whatever you're watching on your iPad, you just fire to the whatever TV. I mean, like, that's just, I grew up as like the techie nerd guy, and I guess my son's just going to benefit off of that because I like to have that sort of freedom of technology and watch what I want to watch wherever the hell I am. So, of course, I watch a bunch of my computer, but certainly all over the house, I'm consuming media.
It's frightening how similar we are for kids with Apple TVs and now Chromecast. And did you get Chromecast recently?
No, I haven't really messed around too much with it yet.
Yeah, it's pretty similar. It's similar. John, what about you, man?
Very similar, except my situation is slightly different. My son is 16.
Yeah.
My daughter's 6. She has yet to meet DJ's son. We still got to get that play date working. So for him, he started when I started going to some LANs for Quake, and so he started playing Quake at 5 years old, 4.5. I have a picture of him sitting in front of a computer playing Quake. So he got into gaming in a different way, not so much the media side of things, but actually playing. And so obviously then he's had an Xbox, and he's grown up with the Xbox Call of Duty kind of phase. But he's always had esports. He's known that Dad has always messed with esports. That's how I met my wife, who is not his mother. So when he was 4 or 5, he's like, Dad, who's this lady? I'm like, I met her playing Quake. And so he understood all of that, and it's quite a different situation. He understands now because he's 16. He does understand the tournaments and things like that. So he's connected in what I'm doing. It's not a huge interest for him yet. I think we see that in a lot of gamers. They go through phases. I mean, life happens, right? And he's in high school. He just got his license 2 weeks ago. So stay off the roads, Marcus. And
yeah, I will.
Yeah, please do. So life is happening for him, but I would imagine that he's going to be the type of person and that if something comes along where it's a big event, something, he's going to understand it, unlike a lot of people, because he's grown up with it. I've always done gaming, and for me, I've not done as much media. I mean, this is the most media I do a week. But for me, it's all tournaments and things like that. So he does have an interest in stuff like that. I mean, he's set up tournaments for his friends and stuff, so he's learned a lot of that sort of side of things in esports, and he completely understand it. But life is happening for him, so he's not quite as involved. But my daughter is hooked on YouTube videos for Minecraft, and she loves everything in Minecraft, and she knows how to work an iPad better than I would say better than most adults do. And she just goes to YouTube and watches Stampy Longnose. It's actually quite interesting and funny to watch. He's actually pretty interesting, and she knows all the characters. I mean, she's grown up with media, as a lot of kids are, but she understands what Dad does, so it's a different thing. Like, she comes in, she's like, Dad, do you have your show today? Or she sees my Twitch T-shirts because I've got 40 of them, yep. And I've got one for her, and she knows what Twitch is. I mean, how many other kids can you ask? How many other people can you ask? I get asked all the time, what is Twitch? And then you have to explain to them. My daughter literally could explain it to her, to someone, because she understands what it is, simply because she's grown up with it in the house. So very similar to Marcus, but just two different age groups that I deal with.
And Richard, why don't you finish things off? Well, you don't have any kids, but
again, not that we know of.
Yeah.
I mean, let's not rule it out. I mean, that'd be a great thing for the 100th show. Maybe just wheel out the little forgotten kid.
This is your life.
Yeah, exactly. No, I don't think I have any, but let's hope anyway. So yeah, in terms of my like esports life, I've been doing it for a long time. It's a decade. The strain and the kind of stresses that it's put on have been on the relationships in my life at that time. Like I've been dumped a bunch of times, and I'm gonna blame it on esports, not on me, not on me letting myself go or anything like that. So yeah, no, it's been a hard strain, and I don't think a lot of people do get what I do and the woman I'm with currently, and that's a long-term relationship coming on 3 years now. So she only knows me. When I first met her, I told her I was a technology journalist. I didn't tell her I was an esports guy. So she immediately had images in her mind of me having like the setup like Marcus has got. Right, which because I don't, because I know fuck all about technology. Like I am literally the most backward ass guy in esports. Like no joke. If it's USB, I can plug it in, and that's about where it ends. So I think she had this wonderful idea that I'd have like this lovely, pristine white technological setup, and of course I'm not. I'm quite, grubby and duct tape. Everything's held together. As long as it works, I'll ride it until the bitter end, kind of guy. So. So it was a transition for her to understand it, to understand what I did, and it did put a strain in the early days. When you're trying to get to know somebody and you've got to go away pretty much every weekend because there's always an event on, and you're that guy who has to travel to it. Yeah. And then just the hours in general, like, oh, do you want to go out for a meal this evening? No, I've got to sit in my bedroom and stream for 2 hours to a bunch of strangers on the internet. So yeah, that's more important than us having a good time, right? So women aren't always going to approve of being put second to a bunch of strangers on the web, but she has slowly and surely come round to it. We've had some touch and go, but I think we're all at a stage now where she's comfortable with what I do, probably more so than me. I'm the guy who's scratching my head and asking questions about what I do for a living right now, rather than her. So, but I understand. I mean, like, if there was a kid in the equation for me, I don't know how I would make it work, man. Like, I'm definitely in awe of you guys for making it all fit, because I have trouble making it all tessellate the way it needs to lead an adult life and be an esports guy, and that's without a kid in the equation.
Well, there are a lot of other professions that require a lot of hours too. I mean, esports just happens to be what we do, right? Or we're just happen to be streaming online. But a lot of people are just working on their computers anyways in their office, and they're not spending time with their families either. So it's not.
Yeah, but they understand those things, Chris. Like if you say, well, I'm a coder, or I'm working on a game app, or I'm working on design, people understand that. But when you say to a girlfriend, when you're trying to explain, because I've had the same thing. I had a fiance at one point who basically bailed. And what was weird was she worked from 10 at night till 7 in the morning, so I literally had all my nights free. But guess what I did during the day as well? I was working on esports, and she just kept saying, what are you going to do with this? How are you going to ever make any money doing this? And at the time, I was getting paid by GGL just a little bit, as Marcus will confirm. And then it just all blew up.
You got paid, or that it was a little bit?
That he works there.
And then that I didn't get paid.
Right.
None of us got paid. But yeah, I mean, it's different. It's different saying to somebody, yeah, I'm in the video game industry. And I'm able to do it now with confidence because I just do, because it's actually, people find it interesting. So,
yeah.
But it is hard for them to understand. Like, what are you sitting at your computer for 4 hours? What do you mean adminning? What sort of tournament is this? And it's hard for them to understand.
Right. One thing, at least for me, I brought Jade into, or Chan Boy, whatever you want to call my son.
Chan Boy.
I brought him to the Red Bull event in Orlando, where he got a chance to meet Wheat over here, and that was the first event I actually brought him to. And we got a chance to actually sit in the crowd for a little bit, and just enjoy the actual event and listening to Marcus and Sean cast. But quickly we ended up seeing Sue or Smix and some of the others, and they brought us to the back room, right, where we were hanging out with some of the others. So the experience that Jaden had going to the event was completely different than somebody else who was just the typical spectator and that sort of thing. Do you think working in the industry and having just basically all access like that for your family affects I guess, the experience of esports for, say, mini wheat and all of your, just all the other children, just John, your children too?
Mm-hmm.
Marcus, why don't you start off with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so I made the conscious decision to sort of embrace, like that was for me, mini wheat. That it was, he always was mini wheat, right? Like when when the kid was in my wife's stomach, right? It was that's who he was. And so I guess it was I guess it was just one of these things where I made this conscious decision that I was going to embrace that going forward. And he like, family's so important to me anyway, and Jen's always been sort of that behind the scenes person, but James was always so interested in everything that was going on. So it used to be that I would meet people at events and they would say, "Oh man, you're a lot taller than I thought you were." And I used to get that so much. Right now, the first thing that I hear out of everyone's fucking mouth is, "Hey, where's Mini Wheat?" So that's had an effect. Like when he goes to an event, people are like, "Mini Wheat, what is up?" And I mean, for some, like, he doesn't look at it as some sort of celebrity status. He looks at it like, I've got all these friends. Like, this is amazing. So he has these incredible social experiences. And for me, like, that's a big win. Like, that's how I was raised, through a lot of social interaction and experience. And I guarantee you it's one of the reasons why I like to do what I do and why I gravitate towards sort of the performer. And that's kind of how he has experienced esports in a way. So I think it's really unique what Minnie has actually gone through in that regard. I mean, certainly there was concern about it, like, at first, because it's like, well, what the hell? But everyone's so cool about it, whether it's online or in person. And so I think it's had a really positive effect on him and his experiences in esports.
Yeah, I think I'd agree too. Everybody in esports is really, really nice, especially to the kids. They're especially nice to the kids, so it's really cool. John, what do you think? Like, do you think your son and your daughter has had? I mean, it's obviously they've had a completely different experience than most folks, but do you think it's been a good or bad thing?
It's been good, and my daughter hasn't really had a chance to experience any of that yet, outside of just at the house and just understanding what I do. But my son, again, went to LANs with me, and everyone was really cool, especially at LANs. It's just it's a completely different environment than like a big show like an MLG, but I took him to QuakeCon for a day, and that was 180 degrees different than when you go to an MLG event or something. But everyone, no matter the event, no matter the game or the community or the culture of the community, everyone is really cool with the kids. It's a weird thing. I mean, it's hard to explain, like, why. I mean, because they could just be like, "What's this kid doing here?" But
right.
I think they embrace it. I think they embrace it too, because for the same reason that we all do. It's like, hey, we're just all trying to make make a name for esports, make a name for what we do. And it's great to see the kids involved. At first, my son, when he went to the QuakeCon event, he was like, "Oh my gosh, what is this, Dad?" Right? And just sitting at a computer all day and playing video games. And then he got comfortable with it too, because people would come up next to him and be like, "Oh, cool, how old are you?" And he's like, I think he was at that time 9 or 10, and it was a good experience for him. And I mean, I would shield him. I'm not going to take him to a party where there's a bunch of crap going on that I'd prefer he not be a part of. But all of the other stuff, I mean, it's just, if you think about it, we're just all big nerds. And it's just nerdy stuff. It's just kind of dumb, chugging balls, and him giggle at the name of balls. It's like, "Dad, why did they call it balls?" Or something like that. Actually, my daughter asked that. Because my son was asking about that. We were talking about this QuakeCon that just happened. We were talking about chugging balls in the living room. And my daughter's sitting there, and she peeks her head up from the iPad. She goes, "Dad, what are balls?" And so you might as well just tell them, because they're going to run into it. And just, in this case, shield them from the shit that's really bad. But the gaming communities and culture is really not that bad. It's just a bunch of nerds.
Yeah.
Games. Love.
The reason I brought all this up is because I remember my first time, like when I was really young, and I was a huge Michael Jordan fan at the time, and I remember the first time my dad bought me tickets. I grew up in Houston, so it was a Rockets game, right? Rockets versus Bulls, and those tickets were really hard to get. And my dad got me tickets for my birthday or whatever one year, and I remember just being so excited and getting to sit there, just being like all the other spectators and that enjoyment I had, right, and that kind of feel. And I remember going to my first MLG also, and having that same kind of feeling even as an adult. And I'm wondering if our kids are going to ever experience that in terms of esports, because we won't have, they'll have that connectiveness already to these players, and they'll actually be people to them right off the bat, versus these kind of heroes and these figures. And
well, think about it this way. My daughter loves Stampy Long Nose. I keep bringing him up. You should look him up. So she loves the Stampy Long Nose guy, and she wanted to see what he looked like. So she YouTubes, and I help her YouTube it to find what he looks like. He's just a normal looking dude, a funny looking British guy, and imagine him coming to Omaha. Okay, so he's coming to Omaha, and it's all over Facebook, and I find out about it. He's going to be at like this, this little hotel convention area, and he's going to be doing a video and everything.
He really is coming to Omaha?
No, but wouldn't that be awesome?
Oh, I got it.
No, you're thinking, geez, I got to get a ticket for that. But imagine something like that happening, her excitement about that. So, she would literally be excited, like, Dad, can we go see it? We go sit there, and she would be totally excited. She'd remember that as a moment. And it's all gaming related. It's all video game related. So I can definitely see where there's going to be a point where some of these kids that are growing up and watching YouTube videos of their favorite players, especially I look at the Call of Duty community, right? A lot of them are younger people. They're going to follow these guys, and when some of them get to be big and they get their first opportunity to go to an event, they're going to love it. I talked to plenty of people at QuakeCon. It was their first time there, and they're like, oh, this is awesome. This is crazy. So I think that feeling is there. It was for me the first time I went, and I was older. I think it was 19 or 20.
It's kind of analogous to like when Boxer first came over. Just those guys came over to MLG, and everybody was getting a chance to meet them for the first time. Like our kids, they're just gonna be like another gamer, Like it's not gonna, I guess, have that feel to it. Richard, actually, what's your opinion on this?
Well, just to pick up on the point you're making about kids and maybe not wanting to have that, not connecting with players in the same way that maybe we did with sports celebrities or whatever. When my company who I work for, Ever Media, did the Gadget Show, we had KSI, the FIFA YouTube guy, and I don't follow FIFA at all. I'm not really that interested in it. Sorry, I prefer the real thing. That's me. But evidently a lot of people do, because when we put him out on stage, I could not fucking believe it. Like, bearing in mind it's the Gadget Show. There's a TV show being filmed there anyway. So there's guys who are on TV around. Yeah, the gamers did not give a shit about that, right, in the game zone. This guy who did some FIFA videos, they were queued out of the back. Like, we got a photo of it. It was ridiculous. You must have been talking 10,000 people, like, just in one tiny little space. We had no idea how popular it would be. And people were all clamoring just to get, like, autographs and getting him to reenact moments from YouTube and stuff. And that was like a real surreal moment for me. I've seen Korean StarCraft players get kind of mobbed, and I've seen like sign mouse mats and t-shirts and shit, but I've never seen anything like this. So I think if the celebrity is there, people can still get worked up about it. For me, in terms of, like, obviously, again, not having a kids, I can't really talk about it from that perspective, just in terms of, how people get excited about it. But pretty much everyone in my life, like, doesn't get, like, excited about what I do at all. Everyone I tell what I do for a living, they are just so under-fucking-whelmed. Like, when they see the reality of it, like, oh, right, cool. And then that's it, like my friends come over and it'll be like, yeah, I just got to go next door. There's a League of Legends tournament on. I need to do a match report. So just give me half an hour. You guys sit here, kick back, drink some beers. And they'll just walk in and just see me, like, watching this game. And they'll just be laughing at me like I'm the loser of the group suddenly. I've gone from being the alpha male to the fucking loser of the group because I have to watch a video game. And it's, it's the same when, again, like you say, I have to explain to Janine, what I'm doing. And she'd be like, right, so, you've got to go to this event, they're playing this particular game, and you've got to interview some 16-year-old sensation in this game. You're twice his age, and he's the star. You're holding the microphone, not talking into it. So yeah, it's. I know. I mean, like, I guess I think it's good in a way, because if you can capture the imagination of someone young and actually show them how good, and interesting esports can be, then it's definitely easy for them to sort of grow up within it. But if you've already got your preconceptions about nerds, and video games, and you look into it, you just think, well, someone would have to be out of their mind to be involved in it, as an adult.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. I mean, one slight bit tangent from this, but I think it might be a good question to pose right now is, has working in esports really affected or maybe even jaded your experience as a spectator? Do you get as excited as you used to before you were fully integrated into organizing, covering, and just work in regards to these events and that sort of thing?
That's an easy one for me to answer. I wouldn't be here today if I didn't still get excited over this shit. Like, people don't understand as you get older, like, and actually, here's my thought on it, is that I was the guy who was 25 years old, and I was like, you know what? I am going to play video games forever. Like, I just know, I know, right? But at the time, I wasn't necessarily talking about, like, the competitive side of things, because that was just something that always happened. I'm talking about, the newest release on Tuesday, that 360 game, that fucking new RPG that's coming out. Like, I was going to be that guy. This year was the year I realized that, you know what? I didn't make it. But for whatever reason, the competitive side of it is just the thing I won't give up. Is like, if I don't have to play another game on my PS3 ever again, I'm okay with that. You try to take away, one of the competitive games from me, and I got a serious problem. So this has not had any effect on me as a spectator and as someone who just loves the activity, regardless of what the game is.
John.
Well, mine's different.
I talked to you about this.
Yeah, mine's different. You and I have talked about this. I don't get to play I don't get to play games very much. In fact, I haven't done anything in like 2 weeks. I checked out the new beta for offensive combat, and that was about it. And FPS are my, is kind of my thing. I love FPS games. And when I got into gaming, what drew me in was when a buddy said, hey, check this game out on Dreamcast called Quake 3, and it was a little 4-man server. And I'm like, so are these people like, are these robots or these bots or whatever? And they're like, no, these are people in other places. I'm like, what? So for me, what got me interested was running tournaments. Like, I really loved running tournaments and setting up events and seeing the competition. So I love the competitive side of it. I mean, I'm very, very competitive, very sports-wise. I love that part of it. And I love watching Quake matches. And I got into StarCraft 2. I enjoyed watching that. But it has jaded me a little bit as a spectator side of things, because when I look at things, my mind is more set on the administrative side, the business side of things in esports, as opposed to just sitting back and enjoying it. I went to an MLG event, and this is no knock on MLG. I just went to an MLG event, and it's a big show. That's really all it is, right? I mean, it's a big show. And for me, I just couldn't sit there for 8 hours watching StarCraft 2. And that could be because I don't play it. I don't have time to play it. I mean, to be honest, though, I probably couldn't sit and watch 8 hours of Quake either. Because for me, it's what gets me excited and gets me pumped is seeing things like the LCS and the WCS come to life. Structures come to life, leagues happening, and things like that. So that's where my excitement's come into, and that's taken away a little bit from. It's jaded me a little bit on the spectator side of things, just because probably mostly because I just don't have time.
Richard, how about you? Yeah, I've never really talked to you that much about how much just your gaming in general. I know you play.
I think you're afraid of the answer.
I've never. I don't even know what you play these days a lot.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, like, there's definitely some similarities with me and Marcus in the sense that I had the very first home computer. when the Spectrum 48K came out, I had one of those, and I was fucking psyched, you know, like loading, like loading up. I mean, I've got a box of them. I could probably just go into my bed right now and pull out my Atari 2600. But anyway,
Yes.
I've kept everything, all woody, you know, the wooden panel. I grew up with every fucking system, and I had to have every system. We weren't a rich family by any means, but this was it for me. This is what I was really interested in. Right from the moment I got my Spectrum 48K, and it was the glorious age in the 80s of bedroom programmers, where the guys who were making the games were just normal dudes, man. Like, they were learning BASIC, and they were just literally putting out games on cassettes. You could go down to the local supermarket, you could buy a game for like £1, you know, and like bring it home, and you know, put it in the tape deck, and you know, maybe it might take 2 or 3 attempts to load it because your tape deck's a little bit dusty or whatever, but after 3 minutes you're gonna get there. And it used to fucking blow my mind. It was like, you know, I lived on a pretty rough estate when I grew up. I didn't really want to go out and you know, in a colliery town. I didn't want to play with other kids because, you know, it was pretty much dog eat dog, and you know, I could read and stuff. So that immediately made me, you know, like I was again, I've always been the loser, but sometimes for the wrong reasons. Like I'm the loser because I can read a book, you know. Thanks bullies. So it sucked. So I spent a lot of time indoors, you know, as a kid, and playing computer games was fucking great for me, you know. Like, so I went through with the Spectrum, and I upgraded to the Spectrum Plus 2, and I even remember saying, man, floppy disks when the Spectrum Plus 3 came out, and I was like, floppy disks suck. Tapes for life, you know, they're never gonna take off. Really had my finger on the fucking pulse again. And then it was the Amiga, right? The Amiga 500s. And then you know, it just, and all the consoles in between, the Nintendos, the Master Systems. It was you know, upgrading to the Mega Drive. It was fucking great, and like, you know, I just couldn't believe that you could do all of these amazing things. Like, it was like an interactive book, you know, the stories up there. I would game for hours, and as the systems got better and the games got more complex, the amount of time I would dedicate to playing increased as well, you know. Like, I remember getting, you know, my first PC and playing like UFO Enemy Unknown, like back in '94 or some shit, and that game was never off, like the 486. Right. It was never turned off. I still play that now. And I've still got an emulator on this sick rig that I'm talking to you on now. I still play Spectrum games. Like, I would urge anybody, if you want to see, everyone talks about what the first MOBA was and what the first like RTS was and all of this shit, right? 2 people you need to know about if you give a fuck about games. Julian Gollop, who is the single greatest programmer of all time. He invented XCOM, he invented Laser Squad, the best game ever made, and what was basically the precursor to all MOBA titles. It was licensed by Games Workshop. It came out in 1984. It was a game called Chaos, and I urge you to go and play it. He's working on a remake of it now. It's going to be sick. It is like the best game ever. I play that pretty much daily. Now,
you still play it today?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
okay. I was wondering why you're giving us background on everything, but now, okay. So now I realize what's...
Okay. And then there was the guy who invented RTS games, who was Mike Singleton, which he did in about 86, it might have been 88, not too sure, with a game called Carrier Command. But he also invented the first 3D isometric, basically RPG stroke strategy game called Lords of Midnight. And these games were pioneering. And what was exciting about being into games back then was we didn't even have genres. Like, everything it wants to be like a fucking Call of Duty clone these days, or an RTS, blah, blah, blah. You didn't invent games in the 80s and 90s. You invented genres, like whole genres, like, you know, Elite invented what is now known as EVE, you know, EVE Online, you know, and shit like that. So it was so new and exciting. So it was great. So when I got to like eSports, you know, in 2005, when I was aware of it from '98. When I was at uni, and I was moved from being a music journalist into being a gaming journalist, and I got aware of competitive gaming. But I had too much going on with my sporting pursuits to really get into it. And then as that started dropping off about 2005, I got into it, and I was like, this is fucking awesome. This has got everything that I would want from a sport, but it combines my love of games. So I was so into it back then, like 2005 to 2007, you know, when CGS came out, I was like genuinely excited. Like, I would watch all the games, I would watch eSports across the board, whether it was 1.6, CSS, you know, fucking Project Gotham Racing. I would watch anything, absolutely anything, and I would love it. And I would love meeting the competitors and getting to know them and getting to know about their lives behind the scenes. I thought it was so amazing. Then came the business side of things and trying to make a living in esports, and that is what just sucked all of that, like a big tick just dropping out of a tree and just embedding itself in my neck, and it just sucked all of the passion out, all of the enjoyment, and it just became another fucking job, you know? And I still love games, but like in terms of being jaded as an esports spectator these days, yeah. I sit and watch most games and think, right, when this game ends, I'm going to have to ask generic question number 6 to the winner when I do the interview, and this guy's obviously going to win. And the only thing that even comes close to rekindling the spark these days for me is like League of Legends. But I think when you work in anything, and to cut this long preamble shorter than it needs to be, I think when you work in anything, it does really fucking suck the fun out of it. And again, I am amazed when I come across guys who work in esports who've retained that enthusiasm, like can still get genuinely excited about the games, because that's not something I can really do anymore. And it's a shame, because I remember how cool it used to be, and it doesn't feel like that anymore for me, unfortunately.
Right. All right, let's. I know I started that little tangent, but I figured it would be good to discuss that. But let's get back on topic. And next topic we got here is really the viability of pro gaming for our kids, and it's, whether it is or isn't, and if it is training something that we should be thinking about right now for our kids, because just like a lot of other sports, the kids start early. They start when they're 4, 5, 6 years old, and later on they become really, really good, right, when they get in their teens and that sort of thing. So again, start off with you, Marcus. What do you think? You think pro gaming is a real option for mini wheat right now?
I don't aspire for that necessarily to be an option for him. Mm-hmm. Like, I look at it this way, is that with the dawn of the PC, the dawn of the console, sort of a new skill set or several new skill sets are like added to this giant pool of skill sets that any kid could have. My kid, he can't throw a ball like as well as another kid, like straight up, we play some catch and he's not the best at it. But I'll tell you what, you put him in front of a computer and he will run fucking circles around anyone else his age, right? So he has already begun to develop a certain skill sets that other kids haven't, and the consequence to that, just as there is with any, is that he might not have like these same skills built up. Well, newsflash, like that was me growing up. Like I was athletic, but only to a T. Like I didn't like to get hit. I wasn't going to play football, but you know what? I run fast. I'll run away from those guys, and screw that. I'll just run track instead, So like, but I didn't like, I wasn't like, man, if I don't go out and run, I'm just not going to be able to do it. Where I was like, man, if I don't play some games soon, I'm going to be going crazy. And so I chose to like walk that path of technology and information and learning about computers and whatnot. I think that he follows that path a little bit because if you're going to live in this household, it's probably going to happen. But what we do is we try to encourage, stuff even outside of our own, what we would normally do, or putting these things aside and like and doing specific stuff that doesn't involve technology and whatnot. But I think that as far as the legitimacy of like pro gaming, going back to the skill set thing, there's a lot of kids that know how to kick a ball, but there's probably not a whole lot of kids that will go on to play world-class soccer.
Yep.
There's a lot of kids that can throw a free throw, but it's same thing. So you have to look at things realistically. And even though my kid is probably like advanced as things as like age groups are concerned and skill set, that eventually there's going to be more and more kids playing these games and having really good mouse and keyboard movement or being good on a console controller as as kids grow up and as our generation continues to advance, right? So it's just like kicking a ball. There'll be guys that are pretty good at FPSs, but there's probably only going to be a few who are fucking amazing and that will go on to reach this esports pinnacle. Does any one of our children have an advantage? Maybe, because there's a lot of like potential connections there.
Yep.
But I'm not in a position that I would ever force that on my kid. If he decides one day that he wants to play, competitive insert game here, then that's great. I'll be able to support him in ways that other fathers might not be able to support him. But I'm certainly not expecting him to. And if he asked me to, I would probably be the best individual to say, son, I hate to tell you this, but you're never going to play professionally. Or, yeah, I mean, like, it sounds really crude, but I would be able to make a pretty good, a pretty good call on that.
Mm-hmm. John, what do you think?
Well, that's an interesting question, because my son is very, very good at sports. But if I think that as his dad, if I saw that he had a really, if I saw him playing Call of Duty and I was downstairs and let's say I noticed him playing against somebody like Nate Shot or something, and he was kicking the shit out of him, I wouldn't hesitate for a minute to be like, you're going to set up a team. I'm going to be your manager. We're going to get you a team started, and you're going to enter some tournaments.
Sure. I do that
absolutely
too.
Would. Yeah, I mean, if I saw, and the thing is, the advantage that we have really as parents is that in esports is that we know who the good players are, and we really know if they're good or not. And so if we see if we see our kids like just kicking the shit out of somebody that we know is kind of well known in the community for being really good, and we're like, all right, my boy's got it. My boy, my daughter can do this. Maybe she could be the first, huge female Quake player, or something like that. Right. I would certainly encourage it. Like Marcus too. I mean, I encourage, they're kids. They should be encouraged to do all sorts of things until they find something they really enjoy doing. My son really enjoys soccer, so I'm definitely gonna, continue to support that. But I'm telling you right now, if 7-8 years ago when he was playing Quake, if I was sitting in a LAN and he was pretty good, I mean, it's amazing. The smaller the younger they are, I mean, they get it. They get it much quicker than I did. That's for sure. I started with a control, and when I looked at a mouse and keyboard the first time, I was like, what the? I can't use this. But my son sat down and did it. Had he been awesome at it, and I could see it, and I could just sense that he was going to be good at it, I probably would have pushed him to start playing. In fact, I asked one time to have. He was really interested in it for a little bit, and I asked Chance, who's kind of local Midwest too. I said, Chance, would you be willing to give my son some lessons so he could start to compete? So I have been down that road where I thought, why not? Why not push him to that? And I think you'll start to see that more and more, because as the guys that are playing now, as they start to have kids and they get older and esports continues to grow in that way, you'll start to see them be like, hey, sure, go for it. You want to be a pro? I'll help you. I'll take you to the weekend tournaments and things like that. But right now, parents are just taking their kids to the tournaments, dropping them off, and going hanging out at the bar. They know nothing about what's going on, right? So, yeah. But I think as we get older, that will change.
Yeah, I mean, how much of it is society's acceptance of gaming or not? Because your son playing soccer, right? I know, John, like you've been down that road, and we're all a little bit different in that regard, where we give gaming a legit chance. But soccer is going to be accepted regardless of if he's playing pro or not. Just doing it as an extracurricular activity, just throughout your schooling. Where gaming, competitive gaming, is, I don't think, A, people don't know about it, like you were saying, and B, I think people frown upon it still, right? We still have that social stigmatism, I think.
There's no way my 16-year-old would tell anyone at his school that they can't hang out on Saturday because he's got a Call of Duty tournament. There's no fucking way. He would be chastised left and right. Now, that's not necessarily entirely true for every.
He'd be chastised for that? I'd be. Wow,
he goes to a private school, all boys school. He would get shit left and right. However, there might be a few there that would be like, oh, that's cool, that's really cool. But I still think even if they were the kids he was telling this to were big Call of Duty people, I still think they'd be like, "What? You're gonna play in some sort of tournament all weekend? What do you mean?" They wouldn't even understand it probably. Most
Yeah.
of
See,
them.
so my kid will be on the exact opposite side because he goes to school and he's like, "Yeah, I stream on Twitch,"
Exactly. That's what.
and they're like, "Well, what do
Seriously.
you like? What do you even like? We have no idea what you're talking about." He's like, he just expects like, well, doesn't everyone? Like
Right.
I think that it's so ingrained. And I mean, that's the big difference. It goes back to what I was talking about, John, right? Where it's like, he's like that one step out of the generation that's still, like the way the technology was growing up, like think about when I think about if I had a mouse and keyboard when I was 5, when I was 10. Like, holy shit, man! I actually wonder how much better I would be compared to that. So, like the fact that he is growing up in that perfect sort of era to kick things off, I think is I'll definitely see some different approaches.
Yeah, it's
as far as that's concerned.
yeah. For me, it's been it's actually it's kind of a crazy subject for me because me and my wife have had this conversation because right now, like our kids are in that age group where at least my son and my daughter are in that age where we're trying to get them to try out everything, right? And whatever they latch on to, go and do it. We'll support whatever you do. And StarCraft has come up. Just gaming, of course, has come up. And my wife, has always pushed back on that. And me and her have always kind of gone back and forth on it. And the reason she's pushed back on it, honestly, and I completely understand it, is because of just she knows the way I am in regards to gaming and that sort of thing. I'm very like when I focus on something, or it's very OCD-ish. It's very OCD-ish, and like I'm going to be the best. I mean, that's just how I am, and I used to be like that much more when I was younger than I am now. And the thing with gaming also is that I think Jaden does have an affinity towards gaming, and he is pretty good at it. But the thing is I feel like training wise, I think I could train him probably better than a lot of people. And we do have a lot of contacts, and we do know just how general training works in the professional environment. And so I think we do have an advantage there. If our kids did want to become pro gamers, I think all of us would have an advantage over the next person. And so it's been like really a fence that I've just kind of been holding myself back the whole time, like just to make sure my kids get a fair share at it, because I think I would just be really good at I wouldn't be overly crazy like some of those parents were, just because I know how bad the parents can be. I used to play competitive tennis, so I used to watch some of these tennis parents, and they were just like crazy, terrible parents. Yeah. So I mean, I've always known that I would never be like that, but but at the same time, I feel like my kid, I think, would have a chance to be possibly something special if they wanted to. So it's been kind of it's been something that I've been having to control myself over. But Richard, what do you think about this?
It's tough for me because I'm gonna go down the non-popular route again, and not like just deliberately to be that guy, but like I don't feel I could in all good conscience sort of push my kid towards it, like seriously. Yeah. I feel like I know what goes on behind the scenes, and like look, I'm as a parent, when my kid does inevitably turn up, I'm going to support my kid to do whatever it wants to do, right? Like, yeah, obviously, because you'd have to be a fucking douchebag not to do that. And if you're one of those parents who makes your kid's life an abject fucking misery for some sort of greater good in your mind, I think you're right. You're doing fucking parenting all wrong. You should support and nurture your child, and fuck it, indulge them a little. Why the fuck not, right? They're only going to get their childhood once. Like, don't fuck it up for them by trying to adultify them when they're still a kid, and I see a lot of parents do that, and it makes me sick. But I don't know if I could push my kid towards esports right now, because I know how the industry is. I see a lot of young people getting exploited left, right, and center.
But they wouldn't get exploited. Like, if we were, obviously with us involved, they would never get exploited, right?
Well, yeah. We'd like to believe that, and maybe we're right, and maybe we are so savvy. But let's not pretend that us as adults haven't been fucking exploited by people in esports, right? I mean, like, we were just talking about GGL at the start of the show. No fucker got paid, and that's cool, man. That's just money. But if it goes to, none of us care about money.
Whoa.
I got some feedback there. Who's that?
Yeah, I hear myself.
It looks like it's got for John.
John, it's coming from you, man.
Is it bad?
I thought the fucking fillings in my teeth were picking up radio signals again.
Is your sensitivity turned all the way down, John?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't changed anything. I'm gonna mute my mic.
It's good now. It's good now. So anyway, yeah. Anyway, so basically, we've had bullshit promises. We've had smoke blown up our ass as adults, and maybe we've also had relationships with people, I imagine, in esports that we absolutely trust, and they've let us down, and maybe through no fault of their own, or maybe because they're greedy assholes or whatever, and we didn't see that. So I'm a little bit very skeptical about it. Like, what I would like to do before I even thought about having a kid involved in esports is use my time in esports to clean it up, because I don't think we can call it a legitimate enterprise yet. Not even now. Like, not even when you see League of Legends, on the TV and the LCS, and then you lift the veil a little bit on that, and about the things that are going on in the team houses and stuff like that. I just think we've still got a long way to go, and until it was something where it's like, I know if my kid gets into a sport, the coach is going to have had a CRB, right? That's a criminal record background check for people that don't know. And he's going to be certified to work with kids. He's going to have first aid. He's going to have all of these things, and there's going to be an infrastructure there. And then if the kid goes on to get paid to play, then someone's going to be guaranteeing that check turning up every month, and there's going to be an academy system. He's going to be around like-minded kids, of similar ability. It's so legitimate that you couldn't be necessarily afraid beyond anything, say, like a sports injury occurring on the pitch. In esports, you can't say that. You don't know who the people are. You don't know where the money's coming from. You don't know. There's still too many unknowns for me. And I'm not saying it's an unsafe environment for kids, because certainly my experience is, in line with what Marcus was saying at the start of the show, where it's like everyone's your friend, everyone wants to know you, everyone's a nice guy. But unfortunately, when it comes to the business side of esports, I still think we've got a long way to go before I'd be saying to my kid, this is a cool way to make a living. So sorry.
Agree. Sorry. Why are you apologizing?
I'm just gonna. I found that what I need to do is whenever I finish a sentence these days, just say sorry immediately. It's the only way. It's the only way I can still have a relationship with people in sport. Yeah, just sorry.
You can't go wrong with that, right?
You don't have feedback now, do you? I just unmuted.
No.
No. We're all good. It was just
that 1 second. Yeah, it was kind of weird.
Yeah. Weird. Okay.
All right, why don't we take a quick break, and then we'll continue with online gaming and just our kids and online gaming and violence in games and the effects of it. All right, we'll be right back, guys.